out on the enjoyment of a lifetime. Don't miss the most amazing tag team fighting game ever. Are you ready for a new challenger? Marvel Superheroes vs. Street Fighter!
Hey everybody, welcome back for another fighting edition of SHOREVIEWKEN, where today we're taking a look at the second game in the Versus series by Capcom, and one that I usually overlook because it's sandwiched between X-Men vs. Street Fighter and Marvel vs. Capcom, which are two of my all-time favorite fighting games, but this is still an amazing game. It just feels to me like a bit of a step down compared to the other two, but I have developed a greater appreciation for it recently. I already covered the Sega Saturn port years ago, so I decided that now is a good time to take a look at the PS1 version in the same way I did with X-Men vs. Street Fighter to compare the two, since as a kid this was the only home version I was able to play when it was released in 1999, as sadly the Saturn version was exclusive to Japan. Not that it would have mattered much anyways, considering I never owned a Saturn back then, but I digress. Let's take a closer look at this PS1 port of Marvel Superheroes versus Street Fighter and decide if it's worth playing or if the Saturn version is truly the only way to go. We'll again start with the negatives first, which this time around aren't quite as drastic as X-Men vs. Street Fighter, but are still very noticeable if you've played the arcade or Saturn versions. For starters, you do get all 17 playable characters, including in the Japanese version, the character of Norimaru, which is a strange but fun addition, but once again, in the arcade and versus modes, there is no tag feature, only the ability to call in your partner for assist attacks and team super attacks. There is a crossover mode included that does allow for tag battles, but both teams must have the same pairing of characters, so it's pretty lame, but at least they tried. There's also a hero mode that's basically a team battle mode where you select either the Street Fighter or Marvel side and fight until you've eliminated everyone on the other team, and again, it's not really a necessary addition to the game. There's also a gallery mode included that features some promotional art, production art, and an ending collection, so that's a nice little bonus, but the Saturn version only had arcade, versus, and survival modes, which was enough because the gameplay was almost arcade perfect. Here though, it's like they added some superfluous modes to make up for the fact that they couldn't offer better gameplay. Capcom did make great strides to making the game run better by cutting down on background animations and sound clips to reduce load times and increase character animations, but this game still runs slower and has much longer load times and fewer frames of animation than the Saturn port. So once again, the PlayStation offers up an inferior Capcom fighting game in the face of the Saturn's mighty 4 MB RAM expansion card, but it's certainly better than nothing. Okay, let's end things on a positive note, because despite not being as good as the Saturn port, this is still a very playable and very fun fighting game. Again, the entire roster is here, along with a handful of hidden characters that are mostly palette swaps like Dark Sakura and US Agent, but this is a great lineup of characters. It's a bit slower, but the gameplay here is still very fluid, and pulling off combos, assist attacks, and super combos is very easy to do. The lack of a tag feature does hurt, but this game still works pretty well as a one-on-one fighter with a traditional 2-round system, and something unique here is that the winner of a round doesn't recover all of their health between rounds, but rather just the portion of recoverable health highlighted in red. It's kind of a strange feature, but does make blasting through the arcade mode or dominating someone in the versus mode just a little bit trickier. So overall, the gameplay here is still very fun, still plenty of characters to battle with, and you still get Apocalypse and Mecha Goki as your boss characters, and I like that a lot. Plus, this is a great looking game regardless of what you're playing it on, with tons of color and detail in each stage, the same great character designs you're accustomed to from the series, and in general just a great visual aesthetic and presentation. On top of that, the soundtrack remains awesome, even if the sound quality does take a little bit of a hit. This game, in my opinion, still sounds almost as good as it looks. So in conclusion, this port is definitely inferior to the Saturn version. But even when you are playing a lesser port of Marvel Superheroes vs. Street Fighter, you're still playing a damn good fighting game, so pick it up for your Saturn or PS1 and have some fun with it because it is awesome.